While building my road, I've run into rocks, naturally. Some of the rocks, though, are too big for my excavator to lift or to fit in the trailer, like that one right there. I've already broken up two of them. Here's the pictures. But I got to do something to reduce the size of this rock so it's manageable. Well, I found this stuff, Dexpan expanding grout, and it works. I'll show you how. The first thing you got to get is one of these big, beastly hammer drills. So I bought this one. You can rent them. And let me tell you, this thing, it'll work for you, but it is never your friend. You got to watch out for it. It's strong. It will twist. If the drill bit jams, it will twist and mess up your wrists and fingers. So anyway, let's talk about it for a minute. This is a Berserker hammer drill. I'll give you the specs in the comments. Its main features are, one, you can change it from hammer to just, well, actually, you can turn off the drilling function and make it just be a hammer so that you can chisel things. It has an adjustment here for its strength. 6, oh, it's a mean beast at 6. 4's fairly manageable, but I'll show you a trick for managing it. This handle is adjustable. You basically unscrew it and then it will rotate. Although it's being stiff this morning, I don't know what its problem is, but you can set it to any angle and then you tighten it up like this. I found that this 180 degrees opposition from the handle, it gives you the most leverage to hold the thing on target. Things you'll also need, you're going to want a headset because it's loud. All of this is loud. I got a generator running, an air compressor, a little water pump, which isn't very loud, and the drill. And the impacts on the drill when it plinks the rock, they're kind of rough on the ears. You'll also want some goggles, safety glasses of some kind, because, well, I'll show you, but it slings a little bit, not much. And you need 2 drill bits. The Dexpan wants an 1.5-inch hole, 12 inches deep. That's an 1.5-inch drill bit. And I found that if you drill a pilot hole, my friend Dave suggested that, the pilot hole actually makes the 1.5-inch bit go much faster and work easier because it's already got some edges on the rock, I think. Maybe some space for the powder to go. All right, so now that we've done the basic orientation, I will show you how we drill a hole. Now this is the first time I've worked with a big hammer drill like this, and it uses a different connector than your basic hand drill. I think they call this SDS. It's got these weird grooves in the drill bit. It falls in like that, and it's not seated yet, but there. Now it's seated, and it moves, but it doesn't come out. It's not quite sure what holds it in, but it's pretty cool. Oh, it's held in by the bottom of this slot. That's what it is. Anyway, I'm pretty happy with the chuck on this drill. Works pretty well. To pick your spot where you're going to drill. They want drill holes a foot apart. In uniform concrete, you can make a really nice line, and it'll break along that line. But on random mountain rocks, that's not so true. It mostly shatters them if you do it right. What you want to do is find an already existing crack in the rock. There are some in this rock, but they're not close enough to the center to be worthwhile. This rock has a grain to it. I think it's also a fairly soft rock, but it has a grain to it. You can see it's got a sedimentary type of grain. Anyway, I'm drilling with the grain to try to, because it's going to be softer and break along the grain that way. I drilled this hole yesterday. It's a good foot deep now, even though it's got some water in it. So I'm going to drill another hole over here, again along the grain. Won't be in the same grain as that, but still, I think this rock is going to break into plates that way instead of just shattering or breaking in two. We'll see. It doesn't matter. As long as I take some rock off, I'll be able to lift this one. This is close to what I can lift with the excavator. By the way, that's the excavator. So you know how big they are, how big I'm talking about. But this works on big rocks and small rocks. So you can use it on some monster piece of bedrock that you run into also. Wait a minute. This boring footage is to demonstrate how frequently I pull the bit out to cool it and rinse the hole. This is the small bit for the pilot hole. The big bit needs rinsing and cooling too. Once you get into the rockaways though, the hole will hold more water, so you don't have to pull out and rinse as often. You still need to rinse fairly frequently because otherwise the powder builds up in there and jams the bit. The instructions say not to push down on the drill. The bouncing helps it break the rock. However, I found that pushing down a little bit seems to make it drill faster. Don't fully compress the spring now. Try to relax when you hold it, but be prepared to resist if it jams. The pilot hole. And as you can see, as you saw, I was using water to keep the bit cool and to rinse away the powder. The thing is, you want the hole filled with water, keep the bit wet, and it will drill through that ultimately, and the sludge will soak up the water. And when you start seeing the dry powder like this, you need to rinse again and refill the hole. But there's another problem. The more gunk you have in there, the more sludge, the more likely the bit is to jam. And when it jams, its drill has so much torque that it'll hurt your wrists and fingers. So I'll show you what I did about that. But right now we're going to move from the small bit up to the big bit, and then drill right down that hole, and the big bit will have an easier time of it because of this pilot hole. Oh, I got to rinse it off first though, which I will. When I use the 1.5-inch bit, when it jams, it has so much leverage that the drill really hurts. So what I came up with was I attached a strap, a fixed object, in this case the truck, and I put it around that second handle, and that allows the strap to take the torque, force, from any jam that occurs. So here's how we do that. This drill is like a rented mule. It'll work for you, but don't relax and trust it, or it'll try to hurt you. All right, so we got our hole drilled, stopping frequently to rinse it out. I used my little Ryobi sprayer there because I'm in the middle of nowhere and I don't have a garden hose. If I had a garden hose, I would just set it next to there or have my lovely assistant hold it so that it constantly flowed into the hole. I don't get that luxury. I've checked the drill though. After drilling that hole, the drill is pretty hot. So it needs some time to cool down. You can't keep drilling. Word on the bits, especially this big bit. So the bit, as you can see, it's really like 4 chisels. And the drilling action is the chiseling. It's bouncing and scraping the rock. Mostly bouncing though. Is it hot? No. The water kept it cool and filthy. But that's really important. You got to keep it cool. The tungsten carbide here can certainly handle immense amounts of heat, but the steel is limited. So don't overheat your bit. The best way to keep that from happening is to keep the hole wet. That way it really can't get any higher than 212 degrees, right? Another useful hint. If you, since it takes so long to drill these holes, you may end up leaving them for a day or 2 or more. And you don't want stuff getting in the holes because that's just going to degrade the ability of the expanding grout to work. It turns out a Gatorade top is almost exactly the right size for those holes. So you stick a bottle in like that in there, and the rain won't get in, junk won't get in there, bugs won't get in there, nothing. So there you have it, a Gatorade bottle. Other bottles work too. I think it's standard size. Here's another example of a rock that we're going to break. This rock has been breaking wheels on trailers going up a fairly narrow gravel road. At a turn, there's a split right here, and as a result, the trailers don't follow in the same tracks as the towing vehicle, and frequently their wheels hit this rock, bending the wheel, busting tires, that sort of thing. So I'm fed up with it because it's gotten me too. I've already drilled 2 small holes, and then I'm gonna drill at least 1 more, maybe 2 more. I've got to expose the rest of the rock here. There aren't any good flaws to work in this rock that I've found. There are some good indentations that'll keep my drill bit still. Now, right now I'm using the small drill bit, and it gets hot too, so I keep pulling it out. As soon as I start getting sludge out of the hole, that's when I'll pull the drill out, and I'll find that the tip of the drill is dry, and that I've got dry powder at the bottom, which means the bit's going to be heating up. So it's time to rinse again. You can see when I pulled out the drill bit that it brought out some dry powder along with the sludge. So, and drill bit is mostly dry. So you can see that the sludge is just the sign that it's time to rinse. Okay, I've got 4 good holes drilled to the depth of the drill, which I would guess is about 8 inches. I found a crack down here. Here's a flaw. I drilled it. I don't think I'm going to widen that one out to 1.5 inches. I think I'm just going to add some the grout to that, since there's already a very weak spot in the rock there. Up here though, that's solid rock, no flaws, and it's got to go to be able to get this out of the road. I hope it shatters it, because otherwise it's going to be a difficult rock to move. Okay, here's what we're going to do. This is a bag from the bucket here of expanding grout. I've got a glass of water, or a cup of water. We're not intending to advertise, but it's a convenient cup. You need to be accurate about the mix of water and grout. Too much water, it's diluted. Too little water, it won't hydrate and expand like it should. Unfortunately, I don't have a way to measure it. I did the first time I used this stuff, so I'm going to try to do this based on consistency of the slurry, which I think I can do. We'll see. It is mostly powder with only a small amount of water. So let's see if I can do this, and then we're going to see if it works. So you'll know whether you can mix it the way I'm doing based on consistency rather than... that may have been too much water, but I'll add some more powder. Now you got to mix it really well. You don't want any lumps. You don't want any dry spots. Otherwise, it won't expand to its full potential. I'm using an iron nail to mix. I hope that's okay. I don't think that it's going to be too reactive. The main ingredient in the expanding grout, I've read, is calcium oxide, quicklime. And apparently, quicklime, when it hydrates, expands rather dramatically. I feel like my consistency here is too thin. However, I'm not sure that I've got... Yeah, I have not. There's an advantage of using a transparent cup. I can see that the stuff at the bottom has not gotten fully wet. It's actually kind of useful to be able to see that. Yeah, I can also feel with the nail that it's thicker down there. I'm sort of scratching into it. I don't know how much work time you've got. I'll have to look. It's enough to get it mixed and poured, though. It's not a terrific rush, but you're not going to mix this in one place and carry it to another. That won't work. All right, I can tell I have too much water in here, so I'm going to add some more powder. Add a little powder, a little more grout. See if that's enough. Consistency I'm looking for is not pasty. It's liquid enough to pour, but not too thin either. Wow. I just added a small amount of powder, and it's really made a big difference. It's much thicker. It is still liquid, and I am still mixing in the dry stuff. All right, ready to pour this. You know, one thing I didn't do, and this was a joke on my part, I did not clean out the holes. And I got to do that. All right, so we're going to blow out the holes. Make sure they're clear. See, I had a lot of water in there from yesterday, and that would have diluted my mixture. There is some water in there, so maybe I'll put a pinch of powder in. I think I'll put a pinch of powder in before I pour the slurry in. Now, by the way, it is important to wear gloves. This stuff is very corrosive. So here we go, pouring it in. See, that consistency, it's like a milkshake. At least that's what it was when I did the first batch. It's not on film. We're getting down to the thick part that doesn't flow as well. This reaction, by the way, is exothermic, so if you feel the cup is warm, it means that it's reacting already, and you better get on with it. This cup is not warm. I think I felt just a touch of warmth. That turned out to be the right amount for one 12-inch hole. That's 12-inch by 1.5-inch diameter. You know what? The water comes to the top. One thing I noticed, and I'll show you if it does it again, when I first did this, that once it hardened and broke the rock, the top was just this really loose powder. I mean, really fine, really loose, real easy to just blow away. But once I got down inside, the core was very hard. I filled 3.5-inch, 12-inch deep holes, and I drilled a pilot hole down here in a fissure. I found a weakness in the rock, but I didn't bother to expand it since it was right in the crack. I filled that hole and the crack with some of this. We'll see what it does. And of course, we're still testing my mixing method, which was based on consistency instead of actual measurements. Filled 2 more holes in my original soft rock that I drilled along the grain. We're going to see if it splits along the grain. I don't know. I think there's a lot of luck involved in where a rock actually splits. This is a messy job. I have a lot of water to clean up, and wear clothing because you really don't want this stuff on your skin. It's not good for your skin. But we'll be back with results. The grout in at about 10:50 this morning. It's now almost 6 o'clock, and you can see it split, and it split along the grain like I thought it would, like I wanted it to. And it seems to still be split. Oh yeah, here's another crack across. It seems to still be splitting. I don't think it's done hardening, but I want to go check on the other rock because I want to know. Big rock that bothered me, and it did. This is the next day, and it did indeed break it. See, we have a very small crack. I think that tells us that this rock is firmly planted in the ground. But it did crack right along the lines of the holes. There's also, this rock is mostly in the shade. The others were in the sun, so it was a little cooler. And as it turns out, it took longer for the grout to cure. But boy, once it cured, it busted this rock. Now, we don't know how big this rock is. Clearly, it is at least partially buried. Well, partially buried, period. And therefore, I can't pry that. And besides that, that fragment is a little too big to handle by hand. So I'm going to have to come back and drill it some more and break it up into smaller pieces, which hopefully I can extract from the ground better. We'll see. But still, I consider the grout a great success. I mean, look at that break. There's one of my holes, and you see it broke in 2 directions. 3 directions? 3 directions, I guess. It broke over here to this hole, which broke over here to this hole, and as far as I can tell, the grout that I put in the existing crack didn't do anything. So I won't do that again. Oh, this also vindicates my mixing by consistency. My advice is still to use the measurements so that you've got an accurate mix of water to grout. However, if you're without it, basically it's a thick milkshake, like right when you first get the milkshake and it's still mostly frozen. That's what you want. So 2 12-inch holes pretty much destroyed this rock. It had a grain to it, and it split all along the grain. There's a final on the wheel breaking rock. I had to use some muscle, a crowbar, and a wedge, and a hammer, but it came apart, and only did that because I'd cracked it up. Okay, here's what appears to be a small rock in the road, but it's not a small rock. This is the tip of the iceberg. I've drilled it with the small drill, and because the piece that I'm trying to break is so small, I'm going to try putting the Dexpan in the small hole. I know it wants an 1.5 inches, and I'm sure that it generates a lot more expanding force with an 1.5 inches. But we're going to try it with the little one and just see whether it works or not. So I have this big rock in the middle of my road that a much bigger excavator than mine could not budge. It's not in the middle of the road, it's in the middle of what should be a ditch. And you got to have a ditch to get rid of the water on the road. So I have drilled 9 holes in 2 rows, at angles to each other, so maybe this will break a V groove out of the rock. This rock, by the way, is very clearly Carolina gneiss. It is quite hard, mostly black with white speckles. It's kind of pretty on the inside. Outside here, though, is weathered. So we're going to see what happens with this. This is an experiment. Well, this is the next day. It didn't break a V like I wanted, but it does have at least one crack line that followed the line of the holes. It did break it up, though. I'm going to see how much it comes apart when I put a crowbar to it. But it's pretty shattered. And this was a thoroughly buried, unknown size rock made of Carolina gneiss, which is remelted granite. It's pretty hard. I've disassembled a lot of the broken rock. Some of it's a little big for me to move. I'll get a machine to help. But I figured out why it didn't break in a V like I designed with my drill holes. This gray and black look, yeah, there we go. This is Carolina gneiss. It's metamorphed, remelted granite, which then rehardened. This is the inside of the rock, inside where it's good rock, good solid rock. However, if you look at where it broke, a whole lot of this is weathered. That brownish, that's weathering. And what that means is that there were already cracks and flaws in the rock that I couldn't see. They just hadn't expanded. But when I expanded the rock with the grout, it broke along the existing lines. By the way, it left me a solid piece there. I'm going to have to drill that one again. But honestly, it did a pretty good job. I mean, it pretty much shattered this rock. Of course, that was 9 holes that I filled. So it's going to solve my problem. That's important.